أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا Muhammad وآله الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Dictations. Finally, it's been a while. I hadn't gotten the opportunity to record another episode of the Dictations. Things have been so busy with work and classes and teaching and research and studies and whatnot. And also, if you haven't figured out yet, I have launched a membership on YouTube for my Iqra Online channel where a lot of interesting content will be uploaded just for the members, exclusively just for them. And it's a monthly membership that you can kind of subscribe to. It's not that expensive. I mean, that's kind of relative, I know, but given the circumstances of people, I can tell that's probably not so expensive monthly. Probably buy maybe 2 coffees or 3 coffees in a month with that amount. So if you like my content and you like my presentations and classes, definitely check out the members exclusive, because there's a lot of interesting material that's already on there that's never been published, and a lot more is coming out, inshallah, and there's a lot more in the pipeline. As a matter of fact, the content over there is far more in depth than even the dictations. The stuff that is on the dictations is okay. I do a lot of research for it as well, but the stuff that is for the members, it's a lot more thorough and a lot more researched, and also it's a lot more extensive, generally speaking, as well. So definitely check it out. I do update my social media, Instagram, Telegram, Facebook, with all the latest updates, as well as the the community tab on the YouTube channel for what's the latest over there. So definitely check it out, and I hope you guys can forward and share the content as well. Subscribe, and I know a lot of people message me directly when they have a comment on some of my videos, but it's probably easier if you just comment on the YouTube video, because people are messaging everywhere, like on Instagram and like WhatsApp or anywhere else. So just write your comment or remark down in the YouTube section, and it's just easier to have all the comments in one place. So that's about my membership. Now today is going to be a very interesting or very different topic, and that's about games and playing games and having fun, while at the same time learning a thing or two as well. So we don't want to break the tradition of the dictations, and we want to still start off with a sort of story or of a sort. So this story, I actually came across it recently. It's not something I knew about it in the past. We recently started this program for, I guess, preteen and teenage boys and also girls. We haven't done one for the girls yet, but and we called it Hakawati. Hakawati is this the idea of a storyteller. It's an ancient or an old Arab tradition where people would gather together and tell stories, or a storyteller would tell a story, a hikaya, and the storyteller is called a Hakawati. So anyways, I was looking into some of these stories, and one of the stories I found was this interesting one, which I'm about to share with you. And I kind of linked it with the topic of discussion in this episode. So what's the story? Let me pull it out over here. I mean, there's no story on the slides, but I just want to show this cool image I made on AI. So the story is that it's an Iraqi story written from Iraq, basically. The author of it is from Iraq. And the stories that follow that once there was a man who married and had a wife, and every few days he would return home in a temper, and she would feel really bad about him. So one day she says, "Oh, my husband, this will never do. You're always in a temper. You come home in a very, very bad temper." And the man said, "Yes, that's true. He's like, when I go to the town, there's things that happen in the marketplace, and that makes me upset, and I come home and I'm in a temper." So the wife says, "But this is not going to work out, because I also have a very bad temper. I'm at home, I'm busy." And then she says that if we are both in a bad temper on the same day, who knows what might happen? There might be a fight or something. So she says to him, "You must give me a sign or a signal so that I know you are coming home in a temper, so that I'll make allowances for you. Okay. So he says, yes, you're right. That's a very good idea. So in those olden days, men used to wear on their heads a red fez with a long black tassel hanging down at the side. So the man said, I'll put the tassel of my fez towards the front. Fez is like this hat. Towards the front on the day that I'm coming home in a temper. And when you see the tassel hanging at the front, you'll know that I'm in a temper, and whatever I say, whatever my words may be, you shouldn't feel bad and take them to heart, because you know I'm just in a temper. So she says, that's a really good idea. But when I'm in a temper, what about that? I'll also give you a sign. So she said this to help him get rid of this bad habit. So she told him, so I'm going to wear a white apron. And when you see me wearing it, you'll know that I'm in a temper and you must put up with me. And he said, that's fine, that's perfect. So she began to wait for him every day about the time of his return and watch for him from the window. She could look out and see, and when he reached the top of the street, if he had put the tassel at the front of his fez, basically, she would look out and see where the tassel was, on the front or on the side. When she saw him coming, stamping along with the tassel swinging back and forth at the front of his fez, like the tail on the rump of an elephant, she would quickly get out her white apron and put it on. When her husband came in and saw her wearing the white apron, he moved the tassel to the side of his fez, for it wouldn't do for both of them to be in a temper at the same time, or they might beat one another up. So he gave in. Time after time, once, twice, thrice, the same thing happened, until the husband said, "Oh wife, your fits of temper come at the same time as my fits of temper. They come together." "Oh my husband," she said, "give up your bad habit and I will give up mine. A temper does no good. Allah has given human beings wisdom, but temper drives out the wisdom. If you're in a temper in the city, what excuse have you for coming home in a temper? So my temper goes up with your temper, but I can control and put aside my temper. I beg you also to put aside your temper and not to bring it home with you." He said, "Indeed, you are quite right." So from that time onward, he did not put his tassel at the front of his fez, and he gave up his temper just as his wife had suggested, and his wife had suggested that he should, and they lived happily ever after, and neither he nor she gave way to their tempers. Okay, so that's a very simple and interesting story. Now, the point I wanted to share from this story is that, you can share some points, and you can kind of try to figure out what is the moral of the story, what's the point of it. But I actually wanted to link it with this idea of what I want to talk about today, which is games and playing, right? And what I want to highlight here is that if you notice, what did this lady do? She took a relationship that she had with her husband. Okay, well, she took a relationship that she had with her husband, and her husband's always coming home angry. And she wanted to change his behavior. She wanted him to stop coming home in a temper and just taking it out on her. So what did she do? She asks him, or she makes a sort of like a challenge for him, right? She says that, hey, if your tassel is in the front and I'm wearing a white apron, then on that day, you better not throw a fit at home, because then it can be a problem. So she creates like this, almost like a challenge and a game for him, and slowly, eventually, and he wants to win that game as well. He doesn't want to sort of lose. There's a win and lose condition in it, right? If you lose your temper while I'm wearing my white apron, then you kind of lost the challenge, right? And that kind of hurts the man's ego as well. So what is he doing? He comes home, he has his tassel in the front, he's in a temper, he comes home and she's wearing this white apron, and he's like, oh wait, I better not throw a fit, because then I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose the condition that is part of this challenge. So he kind of puts the tassel on the side, and then it's calm. And over time, he kind of gets used to it. He kind of gets used to controlling his temper. Okay. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that if you really think about it, the wife turned this thing into a game, right? Whether however you want to define it, it was like a game. There's a challenge in it. There's a win and lose condition, and there are some other conditions in it. Like you have to, for example, behave in a certain way if you see certain things, or you must not do certain things if the scenario is, for example, in a certain way. And eventually, he ended up learning how to control his temper. So very, very interesting story, and I'm not sure if the storyteller or the Hakawati himself or herself was analyzing it from that perspective. Maybe they had a different moral that's over here and so on. But I read this story and I quickly linked it with some of the stuff that I've been learning over the last couple of months, and that is that, hey, this is literally taking gaming elements, things that kind of make up a game mechanics and gaming elements, and turning this experience into a sort of almost like a fun and learning experience for that person. And also it created a change in that person. So what did this lady do really, right? So firstly, she uses signals, which are a key component of any games, right? So in this game, the tassel is that signal, or the white apron is that signal that indicates their moods. Okay, so almost like in a game, and let's say you're playing a commercial game and you have like the life bar, or any other game like a RPG game where the levels are going up and down. It kind of shows the player's health level or life level or moods or whatever, frustration. Sometimes even some certain games even show emotions of players. For example, in Roller Coaster Tycoon, for those of you who used to play it back in the days, you can click on a customer, and it can show you the mood of the customer and how happy they are, how sick they are, how sad they are, and so on. So there's these signals that she put in that indicate the mood of the person. Okay, and as I said, that's very similar to these visual elements that exist in games. So another thing she did is she's trying to do behavior modification, okay, through game mechanics. Now, what's the game mechanic over here that she puts in? She is saying that, hey, if you come into the house and your tassel is in the front and I'm wearing a white apron, then you must change the tassel and put it to the side. Or when you are coming in and you want to indicate that you are angry, then put the tassel to the front or put it to the side if you're not angry. And this is essentially associating the mood with the tassel. And similar mechanics can be used or are used in games to change behavior, right? When a certain thing happens, you press a certain button and the player will do something different, correct? So you change your behavior based on the situation of the game or the context of the game. So likewise, this man is doing the exact same thing. He comes into the house, the wife's wearing an apron and his tassel is in the front as well. So what does he do? He changes his behavior to mitigate the situation and to make sure he wins, basically. So he puts the tassel to the side. Okay, very, very interesting. Third thing she's doing is that she's setting rules for engagement, right? The husband and the wife, or rather the wife, has set certain rules. She says that if you come in and your tassel is in the front and I'm wearing the apron, you should move it to the side because that's the rule of the game, right? You cannot throw a fit. If you throw a fit, you're gonna lose that game. So that behavior, how you behave in that situation, is actually also the rule of the game, because there's a win and lose to this. It's not just a game without any winning or losing, even though there are some games, maybe I might highlight some of them, that have, there's no winning or losing per se. There's other elements that are in it, but in this specific game, there is a win and a lose condition, correct? And then there's there's a desired outcome that she wants to achieve from this. The ultimate goal of this story was conflict resolution, basically. It was conflict resolution and creating this harmony and tranquility between the couple, and she was able to do it through this sort of gamification, as we call it, right? And then there is time at the end of the game, once the husband keeps winning, there's time for the wife to kind of reflect on that and speak to the husband about his performance and his behavior. And then now he doesn't really need to play that game to sort of control his temper. So very, very interesting. That's kind of how I interpret this entire game, based off of the things that I've learned recently about gaming and gamification and so on. Many of you are probably are or were gamers. I was a pretty crazy gamer back in the days. I have not played games for a long time, commercial games anyways. But back in the days, like from the time of PlayStation 1 and even before that, Game Boy and Sega Mega Drive, and I was after PS1 I became more of a PC gamer, strategy games, first person shooters, and all of these. So we used to play a lot of games, and there was a sort of almost like a taboo around them as well in certain religious communities, that maybe the violent games are not so good, or playing too much games is not good, which is true. You don't want to be obsessed with anything. There's always a middle ground and to everything, but you can kind of use those devices and create some very interesting learning experiences for people who are playing, and you can actually bring them into schools and education and curriculum, even in your mosques and your communities, which is what I want to talk about today. And I think we can change the way we look at learning and education, and make it far more innovative, creative, and more engaging for our children and students and our young generation, because these are the things that this is their language. These are the tools that they are acquainted with, right? And we need to be able to better use these and be innovative and be on par with the times as well. So that was the story. So I want to focus on this idea of, in education, there are these three concepts, right? So you have this concept of play-based learning, and then you have game-based learning, and then you have gamification. So these are actually three different terms and three different concepts, even though they sound kind of similar. But they're actually three different concepts, and I'm gonna show the last two a little bit, because the first one's pretty obvious, right? So what is play-based learning? And this is a big term in schools nowadays, right? Like, because you want to make sure kids in younger grades have a curriculum which is revolving around playing. It's centered around the idea that children learn best through play, or they need to be given an opportunity to play, because that's what kids love to do. So what happens in play-based learning? Quite often you'll see this in kindergarten and grade 1, grade 2, early years, where teachers and educators will allow kids to kind of just do their own thing. They will have toys, and they will have certain different toys and costumes and different devices and things in the classroom, and there will be time for kids to kind of play on their own, right? And there is a sort of developmental and learning process that the educator is trying to achieve over here, and certain educational outcomes. But really, play-based learning is not that structured, right? The goals around it are not that thorough. It's more about allowing the kids to, tap into their creativity, their imagination, their social skills, and depending on which educational model you're going with. For example, if you're in the Montessori system, right, it's more individualized. Whereas, let's say, if in a non-Montessori situation where there's play-based learning as well, right, it's more like there is more social skills being developed. Kids are trying to play together, and teachers kind of manage that. Let's say they don't want to share a toy or whatever. But the idea here is that it is not as structured. There is this idea of free play. Let kids be free, and that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of room for that in schools and education, but there should be, in my opinion, some direction and some guidance. It should not be completely free all the time. Yes, there are times where you just let your kids play, just like at home. Kids kind of just doing their own thing. There is room and space for that, and there should be room and space for that in schools as well. But obviously, schools are a very different mechanism. Is complex. You have limited time. You have all sorts of other objectives that you want to achieve. But nevertheless, there should be this completely unstructured, non-directional playtime for kids as well in the school, right? So lunchtime or recess or in the classroom, I'm talking about in particular. So that's what play-based learning is. But I guess sometimes certain educators go to another extreme, where it's like, hey, let's just kids do whatever they want the entire day, and there is some supervision. There's just supervision, but kids should just be kids, and I think that's not the best approach to take. There should be some role of the educator in also guiding and also creating some of these play-based experiences. But anyways, so let me go to the next idea, right? So the next idea is game-based learning and then you have gamification. So actually, let me talk about gamification first. Okay, gamification. Let me go to the next slide because that's where I talk about it. Look, gamification is basically the idea that you take something, you take a lesson, you take a subject, you take a topic, and you apply game design elements and principles to these non-gaming contexts, and you turn it into a game. Okay, you turn it into a game. So you can take a topic, whether it's English or math or science or Islamic studies or I don't know, anything, art, whatever, name it. Or even adult education. You know, I don't know, some of my Iqra courses, for example. You take these topics and you apply gaming mechanisms and game design elements, and you basically enhance the participant or the student's engagement, productivity, and more importantly, their learning. So it's not about commercial games. We're not talking about kids playing, I don't know, Mortal Kombat or something here. No. This is just a topic, and you are going to turn that topic into a game. So you are the game designer, actually. You become a game designer. And this is extremely interesting and cool. And I'm going to show you examples, even some examples that I made myself in the last term. And how you can do it is there are tons and tons of different gaming mechanisms that you can use. So for example, a very simple gaming mechanism or game design element is taking turns. So in a game, you take turns, right? And you turn it into a game. So even as something as simple as, let's say, teachers and educators do this all the time. So for example, you split the class into two, and you say, team 1 and team 2. So team 1 goes first, team 2 goes second. You take a simple topic and you just applied this element to it of taking turns, and you turn it into a game. And kids, you notice that kids get so excited. People get so excited when there's like a competition. So you added this competitive element into it by turning it into, your turn first and then your turn second. Or for example, physical movements where people have to move in a certain direction or crawl or jump or anything, any type of movement that is required, that can also be a game design element. Time limit. Okay, many games have a certain time limit. If you put a time limit to something, right, that adds the sort of engagement, and also the it creates an element of excitement and an interest in that game, basically, whatever that assignment is. Inshallah, when I show you the actual thing that I designed, you will notice I used time limit. I used a couple of these elements in my game design that I designed for a totally random subject on, like, social studies, grade 5 social studies on the Canadian government as part of their curriculum, how did that turn into a game? One gaming element you can add to anything is resource collection, or where you have to gather things, right? So let's say you can turn a topic into a sort of a scavenger hunt. In a scavenger hunt, you're trying to look for something and you're trying to collect certain resources, and then maybe at the end of that hunt, or with the resources that are collected, people are asked to design something or make something up, right? So last year in the school that I'm at one of our teachers, she did a scavenger hunt with like recycling. They had to find recycled material around the whole school property, like even outside the school. And then at the end, the challenge was to create something that is like you can use. So some students made like a pencil cup holder, and some people made a catapult, and it was actually very interesting. Someone made a car or something. It was very interesting, and these are like very young kids. So look how much they have to imagine and be creative to do something like that. So, and the topic was about recycling, right? And they got a living, an actual experience on how to recycle something and turn it into something that is usable. Very interesting. Another gaming element is where you are allowed to switch tools or weapons. And you can see this in actual commercial games as well. You can switch weapons and tools. If one tool is not working, you try to think, what other tool or weapon can I use to get something done? Correct? So that's an element. Rolling dice is an element. It creates a sort of uncertainty to the game, right? And it creates a sort of excitement. Quests or missions. You can take a topic and turn it into a sort of quest. for the students, for the people, for people who are you're trying to teach. You can turn it into a sort of a mission that, hey, your mission is to go do XYZ, go decipher this code, or go learn about something and come back and solve something. Randomness, flipping a coin can be a game design element. Points, so a leaderboard can be created. For example, you can create an entire class, a classroom experience where students are going to be given digital badges for certain performance that they do, or certain things that they achieve, and you can unlock these achievements and give them these digital badges, and then you can give them certain points, and they rank, so you can rank the entire class based on the points that they're achieving. Then you have experience points that you can add, and also narrative is extremely important, which I will show you another story example of that. A narrative is when it's almost like a role play as well. You can get students to insert themselves into a learning experience where there's a narrative. So there's something that they are, participating in. So there's a storyline to it, for example. There's a story to it, and they are participating in that story, but they're also learning something, or they're solving something. So that's about gamification. So gamification is, not commercial games. These are just things that are, maybe content that is in a book, or usually in a book, or any subject that you might be teaching, from basic kindergarten to adult and university level stuff. You can add game design elements in it to make it more engaging, fun, and even assess students. Basic examples of these are like Kahoot or Menti and Jeopardy, and these type of things are also game design. You can see gaming elements that are put in it. The other one that I mentioned was actually game-based learning, and that is totally different. Okay, game-based learning. Game-based learning is actually using commercial games that are designed for either educational purposes, or they are not designed for educational purposes, but you can use your experience and skill and knowledge and bring it into a learning setting and a learning context and turn it into an educational experience, okay, and for an educational purpose. Now I'm going to show you both an example of an educational game created for educational purposes, and a game that had nothing to do with an educational purpose, but you can bring it into your high school literacy class and teach the kids a lot of stuff about literacy and story writing and narrative and so many rhetorical devices, and you can teach so much stuff from that one game that had nothing to do with education. Okay, it wasn't designed. The designers were not thinking about educational goals over there, but you can do it. So these commercial games, obviously they are already designed. They have clear objectives, they have outcomes, they have conditions, they have all of these rules, they have all these game design elements, but but usually they're not about education. They're not trying to educate you about something per se, in terms of like I'm talking about in terms of like a curriculum, or the school curriculum or anything like that. They're just games, and they have certain goals. Of course, every game will teach you something, right? But I'm talking about an educational goal in the sense that it is part of your school's curriculum. That's what I'm talking about over here, right? So that's something that I wanted to bring up, these three different divisions. Now, I want to show some, by the way, someone might be thinking, what's the research on this? To be honest, on the dictations, I'm not going to sit here and show all of the research that exists on it. You can Google this stuff, and you can find tons and tons of research on it. Obviously, I'm doing a degree in education, so a lot of the resources and stuff are usually behind paywalls, and a lot of literature and stuff. But still, despite that, you can still access a lot of free stuff and read up a lot about it online. There are different theories as well, right? Like why do humans like fun, and what makes this play interesting, and how does play result in learning? There's all these discussions and theories around it by philosophers as well, by psychologists. Even in Iran, I was looking into some of these scholars from universities who have written books on this topic as well, and they have done their own research in Iranian circles. But I did not want to go into that aspect, because I know it can get boring for some people. They're not interested. They just want to get to the facts. So that's what I'm trying to do over here. But there are different theories, right? Some people think that playing is just to kind of get humans to release like their extra energy that they may have. Other people have different theories I don't want to go into those whatsoever, because too much takes up too much time. I want to go straight to the actual practical stuff that I've been covering. So look, one of the ways that you can gamify something. So remember, we talked about game-based learning, and we talked about gamification. One of the ways that you can do gamification, which is you take a topic and you add gaming elements into it and turn it into a game. This is what I'm gonna talk about in this slide. There are so many examples of this, but I'm just showing you two very simple examples. On the right over here, this is a very interesting book called The Bosnia List. Okay, The Bosnia List by someone named Kenan or Kenan. Probably he's Bosnian, so Kenan is probably what the name is. And you can search this book up, and there's a lot of reviews, good reviews on it. The author also has, a video summary of it in English, and you can check it out. It's a very interesting book. For many people my age, I don't want to date myself over here, but the Bosnian War was probably the first war we kind of probably heard about, right? And we were probably around 4 or 5 years old, maybe around that time. And this was the war that we would kind of see on television. And I remember asking my parents, like, what's going on? And when the war ended, that was a big thing on the news. And I would just sit there and kind of see all these children crying and mothers crying. And obviously I didn't have a clue really what's going on, or why are these people being killed, who are these people even. But those images are still in my mind from the age I was probably 4 or 5, maybe a little bit older. I don't recall exactly how old I was, but those were the scenes that were in my mind. So this book is about a person. This author, it's an autobiography almost, about this guy named Kenan. He is writing about his experience in Bosnia. When he's a little kid, he's part of this karate club, and his teacher is a very good teacher. He loves him. And then one day, his own teacher, that karate teacher, comes with guns and starts telling all his family to leave the house and whatnot. So the war is basically beginning. And the only reason for that is because this Kenan and his family are Muslims. So it's a genocide against these Muslim Bosnian Muslims, right? And that's what the whole war was about, and that's what this whole book is about. Obviously, the war itself is much more complex, but there was a genocide against these Bosnian Muslims. So this book writes about it. Now, why am I telling you about this? There is an educator by the name of Amy Baskin, and she takes this book and she turns it into an escape room. Now, many of you probably know what is an escape room. Many of you have probably even played an escape room, maybe in actual places, like when you go outside, you can buy a ticket for it, and you can go into these buildings, and they have designed these very elaborate rooms, these sort of mystery puzzle rooms that you have to break out of, right? And on the websites, usually they have a theme, they have a storyline to it, so you know exactly what you're going to be entering into. Otherwise, if you just go blank, you're probably not gonna win. There's a storyline to it. There's a story to it usually, and people have to design this. It's not easy to design. It's not easy to design the puzzles. And then depending on the educators, they can have different levels for it. So you can have easy levels, medium level, and super difficult levels. I've probably played an actual physical escape room maybe once, or I've only played it once, and that was in Australia as well. The most random, you would think I would play it here, but it was in Australia, and it was really interesting. That was the first time I actually played an escape room, and it was not that easy. I was like, wow, you got to really be, think, and you got to collaborate together. If there's like 7-8 people, if there's no communication, then you're probably not gonna come out of it. Anyways, I don't want to bore the people who already know what is an escape room. If you don't know what is an escape room, just go check it out, Google it. This educator, Amy Baskin, took this book and turned it into an escape room. And it was such a powerful experience, right? And so the condition for those who were going to participate in this escape room was that, hey, you better read the book, because the escape room was based on the book. And she turned it into an escape room, and she even invited the author to come and experience that escape room. And he was moved, and he was crying, and he had such a interesting experience. So with this escape room, you can actually assess the students or the people's or the participants' understanding of the book and the novel, and in fact even teach them more about it and make them kind of go through that experience, right? This is what that escape room did, right? And we have been doing a lot of escape rooms at our school, just and you know, not actual physical escape rooms because that takes a lot of time to design and redecorate, but you can also even do digital escape rooms. So I'm going to show you an example of a digital escape room I created for our you know, students in, let's say, grade 5, and I'm going to show you. And this was to test their understanding of the you know, the Canadian government. So basically in grade 5 in Canada, there's a whole curriculum chapter. There's a chapter or a topic within the curriculum that they must learn about the Canadian government, how the laws are legislated, what are the different levels of government. So they have studied all of this, and now we want to assess their understanding of it. So instead of giving them an exam and a test and it's going to make them nervous, we're going to turn it into a game, right? So what did we do? We designed this entire game. Let me zoom in a little bit. And now look, we have to put in those game elements in it. So this is Google Forms. You can use a Google form to do it. So the quest for the charter. And now I created a narrative around it. The charter safeguarding the secrets of Canada's government has been mysteriously locked away by a figure known as the Behemoth. The charter holds the keys to understanding the intricate workings of the Canadian government. You are part of a special task force, the Maple Detectives. Okay, so now the students are like, okay, we are the Maple Detectives. We gotta save this charter. And you know, so on. So you have to go save it. So there are some instructions. You have 40 minutes to complete the puzzle. In a real game setting, so there's actually a timer on this as well. I've turned off the plugin for now, but on Google Forms, but there's a timer as well that will just pop up at the top here. You're only allowed for one hint from the teacher during gameplay, so use it wisely. And by the way, these instructions were put in after we beta tested the game. So you have to beta test the game on other students that are not going to be playing this, so you can refine it and tweak it and all of that. Underlined blue statements are external links, and you know, use a keep a piece of paper. So let's say let's play the game, right? So imagine the time has started. So in what way do we have a say in how services are run in our country? So you click on the video, on the thing, and now you can use something called link lock, and link lock will put a password protection on any link you know, you give it to it, and then you can put a question in that as well. So what's the question here? So basically, to unlock the video that they're supposed to watch, they have to also break this code, and they should know this, which is our national mail carrier. So all letters are lowercase, and there is no space in this. So Canada Post is Canada's national mail carrier, which is also the picture right here, right over here. That's like subliminal messaging. Okay, so you put Canada Post, and you will end up on a video.
Did you know that you are interacting with 3 different levels of government right
now? They have to watch this video and figure out what the answer is. Okay, so the question was, in what way do we have a say in how services are run? Now, if they watch the video 2-3 times, it will say elections. Okay, so through elections, we have a say in how services are run in our country. Now, if you get the wrong answer, it will actually say, please try again. So it has to be elections. So they can check this, you know, or it says lowercase. So if you put an uppercase, it will also say, please try again. So they have to follow the rules carefully. So there's also almost like they're getting tested on their comprehension as well at the same time. Identify the various locations with their correct government level, federal, provincial, or municipal. So they have to click on this, and they will get taken to a map of Canada. Now you can't see over here, but let me kind of, I can't do that. Let me see. So anyways, on the side here, you know, it will actually say the park. If you click on it, you know, you cannot see it on the left side, but basically it's gonna ask them for a hint. Okay, so the browser for some reason is not working right now, but basically when they click on this blue one, which is the first one, there's a code that they have to decipher. So this is Algonquin Park in Ontario. They have to figure out which level of the government takes care of it, the federal, municipal, or the provincial. So this is obviously a provincial park, but the code that they have to decipher says the first letter of the answer. So the first letter of the answer is P. Okay, so provincial starts with the P, so that's P. So then they go to the second point, which is all the way here. So these are random points we made. We made a custom map for this, and it's taking them to Halifax Public Gardens. So Halifax Public Gardens is managed by, so because it's a local garden, it's managed by the the municipal government. So the municipal government, the code that they have to figure out, which is says over here, the second last letter of the answer, and that is A. Municipal is A. Anyways, they'll go through like these 6 places over here, like a landfill and like a fire department in like Whitehorse, which is all the way, up in the Yukon. And the final answer, when they decipher the code, so for each location, a corresponding letter code must be identified. Enter the full code below, and it's an uppercase. So the answer will be parlem, which is Old Latin for speaking, and then parliament comes from the same thing. So they'll go next. Okay. Challenge number 3. They have to go to the Parliament of Canada. The Parliament is comprised of the House of, House of Commons and the Senate. So you unlock the link, they will get taken to a virtual tour. Now, what do they have to do in this virtual tour? They have to answer these questions. I'm doing this really fast, by the way, so usually it's not this fast. It'll take them a good 40 minutes to figure out. They have to read the instructions and everything. The speaker presides over something and is responsible for enforcing and interpreting all rules. So they have to find the speaker. So look, they already have seen these things, these pictures in their books and in class, on YouTube videos and stuff, when they were being taught this. So they should know where the speaker is. So speaker is over here. So they click on it and it will say the speaker is chair, blah, blah, blah. The speaker presides over debate, right? So they'll answer debate over here. Anyways, so they'll answer all of them. I can't go next until I answer all of them. Breach of the code. Obviously, I know the answers, so I'll quickly answer them here. Okay. If you get it wrong, by the way, it will just go back to the same page. So that's also a part of the thing. There should be like ability to replay the game from that same point where you messed up, instead of going all the way to the start. As you know, that's what games do. They have these check posts as well, right? So when you lose or you fall off a cliff or something and you lose the game's not gonna make you start from the beginning. That will be extremely frustrating. So you want to make sure you don't frustrate the player too much, that that they feel like it's a useless game to play. So you want to make sure this replayability element is also added in there, which is what I did. Then over here, they have to go read the Canadian Constitution and what are the fundamental freedoms, and they have to answer. So look at the picture and they have to figure out which one is it corresponding with. So this is media, right? So Constitution says that there is freedom of press and media, so that's 2B, and so on. Okay, so and then there's one final question after that as well. I don't want to go through the whole thing. So this is just a simple example of an escape room that we designed to assess social studies. Okay, now let me go to another one that we designed for basically our middle school students, and this was after we taught them about certain principles of logic and certain principles about how words have meanings and signification. In mantiq, in logic, it's called dalala. The discussion of dalala, signification, semiotics, how words and things mean something, how the crying of a baby means that the baby is hungry, for example, or whatever. Different how words and how things have meaning, and are they constructed, are they natural meanings, are they symbols. We did that whole discussion, took over like 2-3 weeks. And then now I want to assess all of their understanding of that subject. So I created, this was the first ever one, so it was not the best one, right? It was the first one I created. So you created a small narrative here that you are at your friend's massive mansion for a few hours, knowing that your child will be fast asleep. You have a camera system installed to observe your child and the different house rooms. As you are spending time at your friend's house, engaged in a multiplayer game, you notice that your phone app linked to the camera system at home begins to beep. Something seems to have gone wrong at home, where all your important documents are also located. The most important document being your passport. Now, the students have a physical piece of paper as well, where they're going to write down their answers, and at the end they have to come up with a storyline. What happens after he hears about this, or you hear about this beeping in your house. They're going to create a whole storyline afterwards. So, for example, this first picture. In an infant's wail, what tale is told? What needs unfold in cries bold? Okay, what needs unfold? So they look at this this cryptic message, but they're also looking at the image, right? And the baby is crying. So you can kind of figure out from the sentence that the baby is crying probably because it needs a diaper change, right? In an infant's wail, what tale is told? What story is being told? What is the meaning of a baby crying? What needs to be unfolded? Because I added that one because it could also be he's hungry, the baby's hungry. But when you say what needs unfold, meaning the diaper needs to be unfolded, for example, right? When the scent of peril is in the air, what device is there to spare? So when you're looking at the image, there's a fire. What device do I need to use to extinguish this fire? Well, it's kind of right in front of your face. Okay, so fire means that, smoke means there's a fire, and then in order to defeat it or extinguish the fire, you need to obviously have a fire extinguisher. Okay, so when the leaves are changing, what does that mean? It means that it's the season of fall. Okay, and then we did other ones for birds flying south. When it's raining outside, what does that mean? Okay, when it's wet outside, it means that it's raining. Sorry, when it's raining, it means it's gonna be wet outside. And if it's wet outside and you're about to leave outside, well, you better take an umbrella with you. Okay, and at the end, using the word solutions for each puzzle, construct a one-paragraph storyline narrative. So this was just an escape room. It took a while to explain, and but the students knew the context and everything, so it's easier for them to kind of do it. Most of the class was able to figure it out, and the final stories were also interesting. I want to show one final thing. So this is something called Twine. Twine is a tool that can be used to build storylines and narratives where the reader has options. So almost like, choose your own adventure type of a story. And it's very interesting. You can even add pictures and sounds, and you can make it extremely complex depending how good you are with the code and stuff. Now, the code is not that complicated, but you can make it very complicated if you want. Okay, so this was another initial sample we made for a math test. Okay, so it wasn't even it's like a quiz. Okay, for some of the topics that they were covering. And once again, we made it into a story, and it was just fascinating to see these students, grade 5 students, who don't even like math. I mean, who liked math, right? Most of us probably didn't like math. Them just sort of, silently trying to solve this. And funny thing is, many of them didn't even realize they were being quizzed on a math subject. And when I went back to them, I said, hey, these were the questions from your book. They were like, oh, you're right. But look at the story. So because you put a narrative to it, they kind of got immersed into it. You find yourself in the grand magical library of Toronto. The library is said to hold the secrets of the universe. As you explore, you come across a mysterious book that glows. Opening it, you're presented with a series of challenges. Solve them to uncover the library's ultimate secret. So you begin the challenge. As you step into the first chamber, you're greeted by a grand mosaic on the floor, depicting the skyline of Toronto. The CN Tower, the Royal Ontario Museum, the other landmarks are made up of thousands of tiny tiles. In the center, there's a pedestal with a parchment. It reads, to progress, you must understand the essence of numbers. Write the number 3245 as the sum of thousands, hundreds, tens, and units. You notice that some tiles on the mosaic floor are loose. Perhaps arranging them correctly will open the next door. So the answer is this first one, okay? So that will be the answer. But let's say I did the wrong answer. If you do the wrong answer, it'll say you suddenly find yourself in a corridor that seems to stretch infinitely in both directions. The walls are lined with mirrors, and so on, so on. Basically, the weight of the importance of choices weighs on you. After what feels like hours, a gentle breeze carries the scent of old books, and you find yourself back at the start of the library. The mysterious book awaits, reminding you that every challenge is an opportunity to learn. Basically, you're back. Okay, so you return to the challenge. So that means you got it wrong. So that's the correct answer. Okay, then you go to the next one. I think this was the answer. I don't remember. Yeah, that's the answer. And then the last one is this, I think. There's a couple more. Okay. And then, okay, as you approach the book, it reveals its ultimate secrets. A map of the stars guiding you to a hidden treasure that binds the magic of the universe with the city you call home. So anyway, so that's the end of the quiz. Actually, we just quizzed them through a very simple game. You can change the story. You can make it shorter, longer, interesting. You can put more options. You can even put images. You can put sounds. You can do a lot of stuff with this app called Twine, Twine. It's an app. You have to download it and you have to create it. It's like creating mind maps. You can watch, once again, a lot of interesting video tutorials and whatnot. So that's with respects to all of these escape rooms and whatnot. Okay. Now, let's go now to, so this was all gamification. This was gamification. Okay, taking things like math. What's that got to do with the game? Well, we added gaming elements and turned it into a game for whatever objective. So you have to figure out your objective. Are you teaching? Are you testing, assessing? Are you trying to manage students' emotion? Is it more about emotional regulation? Is it behavior modification? As an educator, you have to figure out what you're trying to do. Okay, is it just transmission of some knowledge? Is it rote memorization? Once again, you have to figure out what you have to do. Now, let's do game-based learning. Okay, now this is a totally different world. I'll show you an example of a game that is designed for the purpose of education. Okay, so this is a game for math, and you can get kids in, I guess, SK till maybe even grade 3, grade 4 students to play this game. And it's about these zombies attacking the city, this kingdom. And so look, this is because I just downloaded it again on this PC. I have to kind of, so you take a 2 and you cast a spell on it and you hit it with a 2. So 3 plus 1 is 4 and you hit 4. Okay, so now you have 2. So you have a card called 5. So that's the spell you want to hit these zombies with. So I can do 3 plus 2 is 5. I can hit them. And it gets very complex. Like there will be negatives and there will be addition and subtraction, and it will get really difficult. You can even increase the difficulty to like double digits and triple digits and hundreds, and you can have like these magic potions that will come that can reduce the numbers. So 2, 3, and 1 is 6. You can change the magic spells as well later on. You can do, as I said, you can do a lot of stuff. So over here you have, okay, so this 2, 3. So I can either go for 3, or I'd rather go for 4 because it's a bigger number. So you go for 4. Correct? Now 3, 5. There's no point going for 6 because there's no 6 here. So you go for 5. Now over here I can do 3, 1, and 5. Or I can do 3 and 1 is 4. But I'll rather go for 5. Or that's not 5, sorry. 3, 4, 5 right here. Okay, so that's easy too. Okay, so that was one game. It was called the Counting Kingdom, and you can check it out. Because I reinstalled these games right now, I don't have the saved version on them, but once you finish these games, they get more complex, and these are good to use as quizzes, for example, in class, getting a student to come up and do the addition and let them play in class. And it's just basic math. Or for example, let's look at this game. This is called Never Alone, and I really like this game. So this game, as I said, is called Never Alone. Over here, if I do, let me do continue because I have to actually finish this game. So what this game does is it's about this little girl, and it is based on a story from the indigenous community. And what it's about is basically a story that is popular in their culture, about this monster who is just creating this blizzard, and this girl is basically gonna go and try and figure out where is this blizzard coming from, and she goes and tries to defeat this monster, and the monster chases her. But there's a whole game, and you can teach kids so much about this indigenous culture, their stories, And in fact, it even has this whole, this is the interesting part, because they actually have things that pop up in their stories in the game. They have these cultural insights that you can show kids. So for example, what I found interesting was this bola, right? So the girl uses this thing called a bola in the game, and there's a whole small video about it on what bola is.
The bola is what we call pyramid gum. And the pyramid gum is made out of braided sinew tied onto some heavy bone which you could twirl. In my case, we're catching ducks. When you're out whaling, sometimes the ducks start flying. And they're good for duck hunting. You know, if you're a whaling crew, you can't make too much noise. So you can't use a shotgun for getting some duck soup. And, you know, so bola was a really handy weapon to use for catching ducks. And ducks fly and you throw it up and dangles up the bird.
So they're teaching you about this device called the bola that they used to have, and they used to catch ducks with it. Sorry, let me control. I'll just show you some gameplay quickly. Oh, sorry, this is the end of the game, so I've already played it. So I'll just pick a random level, and just to kind of show you the game. Let's just go to the first. So this is good for a little bit older kids. It might be easier for a little bit older kids to play. So you can either play as the girl or the fox. Okay, so let me skip the video. So I can also become the fox actually. Okay, so if I press Q, I can become the fox, and then the fox can go up, and then it can sort of throw the rope down, and then I can become the girl again. So it's like and that's what makes it a little bit difficult, because you have to switch between two characters throughout the game. Or if you have a multiplayer, you can kinda just two people can be playing this. So it's a two-player game. Oh, so and when there's a blizzard comes, you gotta duck down, otherwise the wind will blow you at the back. I should probably become a Twitch streamer. Later on, you're gonna have to use the wind to sort of, jump further. You can do a lot of interesting things with the wind. So if I didn't duck down over there, I would probably fall in the water. And the whole game, there's this narrative that keeps playing in the background. Oh, I'm dead. I was supposed to climb on that spirit. So anyways, I think you get the point. So let me quit the game, and let me show you some other cool stuff. So this game can be integrated into social studies, for example, and you can talk about, as part of the curriculum, we have to talk about the indigenous community and so on, which is an interesting and important topic, because there's so much that you can open up over there about the natives and their religion, their cultural diversity, and also you can link it, depending on the level of the students, to colonialism and this colonial imperialistic ideas. You can bring a lot of stuff in, and then anyways, over there you can bring this game into the classroom. I'm saying you can bring this into the classroom, but obviously you have to design the lesson plan accordingly, and that's not easy to do. I'm going to show you a sample of a lesson plan where you can bring a commercial game into the classroom and run it. So let me show you this other interesting game called What Remains of Edith Finch. Now, Edith Finch, okay, so this is a sample lesson plan of a game called What Remains of Edith Finch. So, why are you trying to teach this lesson? So this is the name of a game. It's not the name of a book. Why are you trying to teach this lesson? So this is a game appropriate more for high school kids, and you can link it once again with it's most likely going to be linked with English literacy and stuff. The entire game is slowly navigating through the house as you learn more about your family. You simply walk throughout your house investigating for secrets and knowledge. This is a very narrative driven game where even the dialogue interacts with the environment. Where the game shines is when you learn about each death in the family. You are transported to the moment they died, but each story is told through a completely unique perspective and uses completely different storytelling devices. One story is told like a comic book, another is through a camera, another through the eyes of a baby. There's a lot of these others, so you can link this with media literacy, you can link it with storytelling, you can link this with poetry, rhetorical devices. It's actually a very interesting game. Enough cannot be said about how wonderfully unique this game is, and it is perfect to get those creative juices flowing for our students. So look, you got to plan it. Now the teacher has to have played the game a little bit, or at least beaten some of the rounds before you bring it to the classroom. You don't want to waste time experimenting in the classroom. So this teacher obviously has already figured it out. So for them, it will take 1 week. What's the aim? What's the question we're trying to answer over here? What's the lesson objective? We're trying to examine multiple methods of storytelling and consider challenges facing people with mental illness and play through the game. So the language is listen, read, speak, texts that are going to be used, which is obviously the game, materials that are going to be needed, how to do it, and then you can go on and on and on over here. Okay, so this what is it? How is it linked with the curriculum? And then the different characters that are in the play. How did they die, and what's this? How did they die, and how is the story told? So the whole story is about this girl, Edith Finch, coming back to her this mansion that used to be her house, and she goes into all these different rooms, and she realizes her entire family has passed away, and then somehow she figures out the reason why they passed away. How did they pass away? And it's told through a different narrative every single time. So let me run the game so you can see. Okay, so this is where I had left off. So you can you need to use the mouse and the arrow keys.
I'm sure my mom was trying to protect me. Maybe she was afraid I had no life alternate. But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding. I don't want to make the same mistakes she made. Trying to bury something that's still alive. Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe two, I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself and found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Amy believed so much in the family curse. We made it real. I don't know if I should even be writing this.
So basically we're playing right now. She's looking into the story of Walter. Okay, so this is Edith, and then these are her parents, and then Walter is probably her mom's brother, from what I remember. So you basically have to go through the entire family tree in this game. and in each room or each sort of location, there's a different story. So I finished Molly and Barbara and Calvin. I finished these three. So now I finished Odin. So now this is the round of Walter. So Walter used to live in the basement of the house under a tunnel, and under the house, and there's a train track there. There's a whole story about him and how he passed away. So you're actually following the footsteps of how Walter passed away.
But I thought you should know about your family.
Well, what's interesting is the storytelling that's going on right now.
And the history of part of.
This is not a comic. This is not, in one scene you become like an animal. Because Molly was imagining like these animals, for example. So I actually haven't played this round yet.
But to be honest, I feel as lost as you probably do right now. I think people in this place need for what that's worth.
That's the house at the top. That big house is where she's from.
That history of imagination and stubbornness and madness. Any of it seems possible. Been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it. What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting a house? It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but the pet cemetery may be more uncomfortable than the human one. 3 of the gerbils were mine. 2 that did my fault. Sven built the house, but it was Edith who designed the cemetery.
Anyways, so anyway, just wanted to show you these. There is one final commercial game so look, this Edith Finch game is not designed for education, but it can be turned into an educational game. I just want to show you one final one, and this one is also interesting because it can be linked with once again, depending on what you want to teach. So let's say you want to teach students about the history of writing and history of fonts, history of how writing was created, and what's the history of all these fonts, for example. There is actually an entire history of typewriting and type and fonts and all of that. So imagine you've taught all of that. There is actually a game that you can get students to play, and it will go through that entire history once again, and that's called TypeRider. So you play like these 2 semicolons. So you use the arrow keys to move. Okay. That's the click on the banner to view the unlocked content. So let's say what's the content we unlocked. So look, it will teach you the history of stuff as well. You have unlocked the first page of the history of typography. Okay. So continue. So it starts off with, cave paintings. In prehistoric times, long before the invention of writing, humans left traces of their existence in the caves where they resided. The Chauvet Cave, discovered in 94 in the southeast of France, is one of the oldest adorned caves in the world, and so on. Look, you can link this with the power of writing, the power of transmitting knowledge. You can do so much stuff, and then when you bring this game element into it, it just makes it far more exciting and engaging for students, and they will retain a lot of information as well. Okay, so now I cannot unlock, I have to unlock the rest of this stuff. The Greek alphabets, the Latin alphabet, right? It will keep going. And then there are these other books as well that you have to unlock, and then these authors and designers who designed these fonts, and it will come all the way down till the 21st century, by the way. All these new modern fonts and stuff. So to jump, use spacebar to jump, obviously. The cuneiform writing. Okay, so I just died. I haven't played this properly yet, so I have to jump. So the cuneiform writing is in Mesopotamia, and those ancient civilizations would use this form of writing. So it says stay alert. So something Egyptian writing. So every time you do that, you unlock something. So let's see. The Chinese. So we unlocked a couple of stuff. Look, we unlocked the cuneiform writing, emerging in lower Mesopotamia between 3400 to 3200 BC. Cuneiform script was, along with the Egyptian hieroglyphs, the earliest known systems of writing. It is initially intended to transcribe Sumerian. However, it became a dominant system throughout the former Middle East. Teachers, if they have finished this game, they can actually type this stuff out and print it for the kids and even hand it out to the students. Okay, because this is just information that they can have, and you can assess them and test them on it as well. And by the way, this can be done very nicely even in an art class where you're teaching them the history of typography, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and all about them. The Chinese characters. So this is what we just unlocked right now, the Chinese characters, and then we gotta unlock them. So by the way, the game is not that easy. Like, it'll get difficult, but for now I guess it's not that easy. So anyways, I think you get the point. Khair, that's all I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to introduce and share some of the things that I've been working on and I've been doing in education, in the world of education, in terms of teaching, and just trying to innovate our teaching methods, because we're so outdated at times, and we're so innovative, and we're not very creative. But you can do so much stuff and make learning actually fun for kids, and you will see a difference. You will see that they're retaining more information, they're actually engaging a lot more, and you are getting all of the things that you want to teach them. You're actually getting it done. And these are things that humans use anyways. Gaming elements like competition and taking turns and all of these very basic elements, but you can incorporate more complex elements as well. And also, as I showed you, you can bring actual games, and if you are critical and creative enough, you can bring those actual commercial games that didn't even have an educational purpose, perhaps. You can turn it into an educational purpose, and that's very, very powerful. And you will notice that students are a lot more engaged, and they will like you as a teacher as well. So that's what I wanted to talk about in today's session. There is, as I said, a lot more research on this as well, and you can check it out yourselves. Stuff is available online on Google, and if you have any other ideas for games that you think you may know certain games that can be used for educational purposes, please do share them with me. I'm very interested right now in this field. I've already shared a couple of games and how you can bring them into class. But anyways, that's all I have for today. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share, and also do comment your feedback on this specific dictations. I don't know when the next one will come out, but my time is extremely short, unfortunately, and I am focusing a lot more on the members exclusive videos as well, because they're the members. So if you want to and get access to those videos, please definitely do sign up as a member. But inshallah, other than that, I hope that this episode was different and new and unique, and there's so much we can do even in terms of teaching Islam and Islamic law, Islamic concepts. Imagine what we can do to teach kids Islamic concepts and spirituality to these gaming elements, instead of just making them sit there and memorize a bunch of rules that are dry and boring and complex at times. Through a game, you can probably help them experience those rulings and concepts, not just rulings but concepts as well, and help them retain them in a far more effective manner. So that's a lot of creativity that we have to think about, and people have tried their best. There's one more game that I wanted to show you, but actually, you know what, I might as well show it to you, but I'll just show you a gameplay of it. So okay, so this is a game called Muslim 3D, and there's a lot of interesting things that you can do in this game to teach about Islam. So you can teach them about Hajj through this entire game, and you can also teach them about the story of Prophet Ibrahim and Zamzam and how the water came, and Safa and Marwa through a game. Let me show you something about it. So I want to skip through this. You can choose your player, your character. You can design their face however you want. You can be a male or a female, it makes no difference. So you can pray in the masjid, and after you have prayed, you can go do tawaf. Okay, and it will actually show you how much tawaf you've done. So you gotta do 7, right? So he's done 4, and then you can do Safa and Marwa. You can run 7 times back and forth. Then you can go to Jamarat. You can go stone the shaitan. And then Mina, there's all these tents. You can go explore Muzdalfa. Okay, and then you can go to Mount Arafat on top. Okay, so and then when you go back to the library, this is the library that's how the game starts. You can go read up about Mount Arafat. Okay, so that's also important. That's the library. Now you can go see the entire scene. You can watch the entire scene of Lady Hajara, Prophet Ibrahim's wife, coming and being left in Mecca in this barren land, and then looking for water. The whole story is taught through gameplay.
Nor a source of water or food. Hearing that this plus Hajar said to herself, I should go and look so that I may see someone. To make her search easier, she left her child at the camp and climbed up a nearby hill known as As-Safa. From this elevated spot, she hoped to see someone or something that might save them, but there was nothing. She went down to the valley and ran till she reached another hill called Al-Marwa, which would allow her to get a good view over the northern part of the valley, but again, she could not see anything that would help her. Then she said to herself, I better go and check on the child.
So basically, you can go explore this old Makkah, and then there's a scene of Jibreel comes and he opens the well of Zamzam for Prophet Ismail alayhi salam, and so on. So, and that's an interesting. This is a Muslim 3D game, and as I said, you can teach them about Islam. You know, when I covered this in class, students were able to visualize the story of Prophet Ismail and the Zamzam story, and also the whole Hajj. You can teach them about the Hajj through the game, and definitely they will remember, right? Usually we get confused, you know, what did is Arafat first or Mina or Muzdalfa? When do you have to go to these places? If you just put it in a game and make it visual for the kids, they're gonna remember it. They won't forget it. So, anyways, I just want to show you this fun final game over here. Anyways, please, as I said, don't forget to subscribe and share. Definitely, please share with your network and friends and family. And I hope, inshallah, you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you all in a future discussion, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.